Hello folks, welcome back to Reality Check with Arvind Swaminathan. Hello, Ram ji. This is part 2 of Sri Arvind Kejriwal. Meteoric rise and possibly equally quick fall. This may be in one or possibly two parts, but the first part will be Arvind Kejriwal. The second part of this same video, the second thing we'll discuss is Ford Foundation and its impact on all this, and George Soros possibly. And the third part, equally important, in fact most important, is what he's embroiled in right now, Liquorgate. And this, don't take it as something very small. It isn't. It's the core or the heart of something really big. Okay, let's get busy. And please do look at this one and any following ones on this very carefully, because believe me, it's something which is mind-boggling. Now see, I've said before in the previous one, Ford Foundation has been financing him from the very beginning, from the year 2000. Yes, it has been financing through somebody else, I think Aid India or something, and then directly his Sampurna Parivartan. And then when he wound that up, he started another NGO called Kabir, which was directly funded by Ford Foundation. Now remember, Ford Foundation does a lot of nefarious things they shouldn't be doing. And remember, I mentioned somewhere, or maybe I haven't, maybe I forgot to mention it in the previous one, when the Enforcement Directorate went into Mr. Kejriwal's house, they were shocked because they found 150 odd files which were actually dossiers on all the Enforcement Directorate staff that he could find. Why? Why was he doing this? Not just their officers, their wives, their families, who they were, where they were, their children, whom they married, are they married, where they're studying, what are they studying, whom do they meet, whom do they hang out with, and so on. Why was he doing this? So that when they came to search his house, they said, well, I've got this on you. So the reverse form of blackmail. You try and get him to shut up. Where would he have learnt this? Who would have taught him this? Ford Foundation? Because they're very good at this. They've been doing this for more than 50 years. You remember I told you somewhere, I was in the Ford Foundation for 2 years. Now the first year I was based in Raipur. I didn't know what was happening in Delhi. And of course I was rather naive. I didn't know anything about whom to wine and whom to dine and whom to do what with. So of course I was transferred back to Delhi. And this is where I really sort of started digging my teeth into a whole lot of things. For instance, I told you I found out that all the recommendations for growing rice were wrong, and they didn't want to change it or correct it. Why? Their attitude was, should India become self-sufficient in rice? What would smaller countries like Thailand and Malaysia do? Or Indonesia do with their rice surpluses? Well, my answer to that was then, and it still is, if America is so worried, why doesn't America buy it? We don't have the money. But even there you see the depth of their planning. First, build up somebody as their man. In this case, M.S. Swaminathan. He was their asset. Build him up and make him say, flood every acre of rice in this country with a useless variety called IR8, which came from the International Rice Research Institute in the Philippines. Why? Well, millions of farmers will go bankrupt. Plus, we would never become self-sufficient in rice. Why? This variety didn't fit in most places. Because some places you need a 180-day variety, another place you need a 155, very few places where you need a 135-day variety, which is what IR8 was. Other places you need a 110-day variety, somewhere else a 60 to 90-day variety. How do you fix IR8 in everywhere? You can't. What was their plan? Once everybody has got IR8 and forgotten their old local varieties, which were much more profitable, by the way, and if you handle them right and manage them right, they produce as much rice as IR8 did. That was something they refused to let out. Their own data showed it. Now, they didn't want to correct it. And then while at Delhi office, I learned a few other things. Why were they so keen to get me on? I know I was looking for a job. I think my father talked to somebody and they gave me a job. But why me? My father was Secretary to Government of India at the time. Does that tell you something? Who were some of the other people working? The PA to the representative was the daughter of one of our army generals. There was another one who was working for a little while as a telephone operator, a lieutenant general's daughter. And a whole lot of us were like this. Why? These were the hoped for influencers in the future, or future assets of the Ford Foundation. And they're still doing it. Here's a classic example. The Lokpal of the Aam Aadmi Party, Mr. Lakshmi Narayan Ramdas, a retired admiral of the Indian Navy, head of the Indian Navy. What was he doing there? 2004, this man was given a Magsaysay award. Why? What had he done? Apart from being head of the Navy. You'll see in a minute. His daughter, Kavita Ramdas, was the representative, the big person, the top of the Ford Foundation in India for a while. And later, she went on to the US, consultant to the Ford Foundation. You see, why do they cozy up to all these bigwigs in the armed forces? Intelligence gathering. Not necessarily directly from them, but their wives, their children. You dig them enough, they'll spurt out something which forms the basis of their intelligence. Now, people like the Ford Foundation and the George Soros' Open Society Foundation, what are they looking for? They want to map the total mindset of the people of India, hence the NGOs. What makes them tick? Are they corruptible? How corruptible are they? Money mean more than nation or country? What kind of mindset do they have? How much do you need to dangle in front of them so that you can get your own way? Now I'll come to that in a minute, in the third part, in Liquorgate. But remember one thing, all this is building up to what? Kejriwal has been financed by the Ford Foundation. Retired Admiral Ramdas has been helped along by the Ford Foundation. His daughter, same thing. You see MS Swaminathan, when he retired as Secretary Agriculture, immediately he got sent to the Philippines, the International Rice Research Institute, as what? The director. A top job, huge salary. What else? What does he do? Now, MS Swaminathan had a very, very big rival in India called a Dr. Richaria, who spent his life collecting a gene pool of all the varieties of rice in India. which he kept at the Indian Rice Research Institute in Cuttack. And what did Mr. M.S. Swaminathan do? He went to the Philippines and he said, look, this gene pool belongs to the world. He transferred it to the Philippines, from where it went to the US, which is precisely what they wanted. Now you understand? They use that gene pool to breed new varieties in the US. Why? One of their companies patented and got a patent for basmati rice as the inventors of basmati rice. Thanks to the government of India's intervention, finally they had to rescind it and take it back. I mean, their way of looking at it was this, that the Americans invented basmati rice. And the farmers in Pakistan and northern India and places like Dehradun and Chhattisgarh and Andhra, they never knew what rice was. They've been growing it for centuries. That doesn't matter. They didn't know what it was until the Americans patented it. Now you're beginning to understand. Once IRA had taken hold in India, if it had indeed done so, all this gene pool would be in the US. We would be begging them for seed to grow our own varieties. Added to that, the fact that we would never be self-sufficient in rice production. And who were the biggest exporters of rice then? The USA. Now you understand the scope of their intervention. And they were supposed to be helping us to become self-sufficient in rice. That's where the Ford Foundation and I fell out. I wanted us to be self-sufficient, and the Ford Foundation did not. Got it? Now, with all this push-up behind, Mr. Kejriwal also meets Mr. Pannu in the US, Khalistan. He gets $16 million, that's in today's currency about 133 crore rupees. Why? To get Mr. Bullar, or Professor Bullar, released from prison. And he tried, but failed. So the Khalistanis are getting a little upset. And remember, the Aam Aadmi Party won the state election in Punjab with a lot of help from Khalistanis. Remember that. The fact that Mr. Kejriwal is so embroiled with the Ford Foundation, that should tell you the man is anti-national. I mean, this is treason. And I'll explain to you in a minute when we come to Liquorgate. His entire rise has been because of the push he's been getting from behind. Khalistanis, the Ford Foundation, and a lot of help from NGOs around here through the Ford Foundation. Remember that. Add that to the Indian mindset. If a foreign agency says so, an American or a British agency says so, wow, they must know. That's why they've given them all this support. This guy must be a good kid. He is a good man for them, not for us. Because he's doing their bidding and their work, not so clean work, not for our benefit. Now then, let's go a little further and come to what Mr. Kejriwal is trying to do. Why is he in such a mess? Why did he have to be arrested? Well, they've been chasing after him to come and answer questions since October last year. Not today or 2 days ago, 5 months ago, maybe 6 months ago. And our friend just refused to come. He just ignored them. Or did he? He was busy planning this so that they'd have no alternative but to arrest him just before the election. Then he'll play the victim card. Oh, my party is being victimized and this and that. And now the court yesterday said, look, this is a question of law. Do not mix it up with politics or the election, because it has nothing to do with the election. It is a question of law, which he seems to have been broken. And he seems to be, prima facie, one of the guilty ones. That's a big word. Don't forget it. Because if he is involved, and he seems to be involved, and then they keep saying, where's the money trail? I'll come to that in a minute. See, the liquor policy, the earlier liquor policy was, the manufacturer got 150 rupees per bottle, was it 155 rupees? The retailer got 33 rupees per bottle. Excise and duties and this, which went into the government coffers as tax, was something like 330 rupees. Big chunk. Along comes Mr. Kejriwal and he changes it. To what? The manufacturer's production cost is now 160 or 168 rupees. The retailer's margin is increased to 338 rupees a bottle. You think of that. 33 rupees, 338 rupees. 10 times. And with it he gives all these manufacturers the license to sell retail. Whereas earlier it was basically government owned, the retail shops, now it is owned by the manufacturers. Now they're making huge amounts. Even if they double the amount of the previous margin, they'll be laughing. Where did the rest of the money go? If 60 rupees per bottle goes to the manufacturer as his margin, where does the other 270 rupees per bottle go? This is where the election money for the Aam Aadmi Party could have come from. And instead of going to the Delhi government, which in this new policy only got 8 rupees a bottle, a big come down from 338 as it used to be, or 330 as it used to be, is now only 8 rupees. Why? How much is the Delhi Exchequer losing? Why? And this is where Miss Kavita comes in, the one who's part of the South group. She knows where that money has gone, whom it has been given to, and where. Because that was why she and Vijay Nair would know. They would be the chief go-betweens. The money, instead of coming to the Aam Aadmi Party or the Delhi government, has gone directly from the South group to wherever the elections are taking place, whether it's probably Punjab or Goa or anywhere else. And there's no record of it in Delhi. Smart. Why? Because Kejriwal knows, having been an income tax officer, he knows where all the ins and outs are. Now most politicians would not have been able to sort this out or route it like this, but he would, because he had inside knowledge. And believe me, it doesn't stop here, because this is a huge, huge lobby. And what does it involve? Now we come to the third part. You see, just almost every state in India, except certain parts of Rajasthan, is a huge sugar area, sugar cane growing area. From Punjab right down to Haryana, UP, Uttar Pradesh, that is, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, West Bengal, Bihar, into Assam, Down to Andhra is a huge one, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala and Karnataka. Every one is a sugarcane growing state. Every one has huge, large numbers of sugar mills. Which means a huge, and I mean really huge, molasses market and alcohol. Now whether it's IMFL, which means basically India-made foreign liquor, which is your Indian-made whiskies and brandies and such things, which are usually distilled spirits, or whether it's industrial alcohol. All of this would come from here, all these sugar mills. Now there's a big tussle going on whether the state should control all this alcohol industry or whether the centre should. The states already control the IMFL, but the centre controls the industrial alcohol. If those states ever take over the industrial alcohol, what's to stop them going apart, going their separate ways? This is your Tukde gang, aided and abetted by foreign agencies like the Ford Foundation, the Open Society Foundation, which is George Soros. Now you understand what Victoria Nuland was doing in Tamil Nadu last year. You remember when the Hindenburg report came out and the BBC report came out? What was she doing in Tamil Nadu and in Delhi? Talking to all the opposition leaders and talking to people like Stalin. Why? Your Tukde simply means cutting India up into several units, several different parts. Balkanization of India. Each state becomes a separate country. Is that what we want? No. Is that any good for India? No. So why are they indulging in it? Now you understand the danger of letting all these NGOs finance everything here. Now I'll give you another example. George Soros and the Ford Foundation and Rockefeller Foundation. One of the big things, organization they were financing, the CPR, Center for Policy Research. Who was running it? The daughter of Mani Shankar Iyer. She was the head person there. She's resigned recently. Now you understand the influence these foreign agencies are buying to set up their own government in this country, or a government which they can move around, a government which they can control, rather than a government which controls them. Now you understand why they're trying to get rid of Modi. I've explained this earlier in earlier videos. Because he has upset their apple cart totally. And this is another big attempt at cutting India up into little pieces as it used to be 200 years ago. A weak India is what they want, so that they can loot, pillage and plunder it all over again. They've understood how much money is there. Because when the earlier on when the US Federal Reserve hinted that maybe in 2 months' time we may raise interest rates, the Indian stock market would catch pneumonia. Just a hint there, and the Sensex would drop something like 3,000 or 4,000 points. Now that's not happening. Since this Modi government took over, the Sensex has gone from about 25,000 to 75,000 today. Why? Because Indian investment is taking over. Now people understand how much money there is in India. We don't need American investment so much because we have our own money. And people in India never realized how much money there was. And why is it? Because this government understood the value of the internet, digitalization. Things now go through banks, through credit and debit card, each of which, each transaction has a record somewhere. Taxes now go to the government instead of people's pockets. Plus, try and remember this. Why are people able to invest in the Indian economy? Why can they buy and sell shares? The internet. It has gone from the metro city to the A towns, the B towns, and the smaller towns, and even semi-urban areas. Transactions, instead of taking 2 or 3 days, now take minutes. There's net banking. Such things unheard of before. I know Mr. Chidambaram said, how you expect a person in a village have machine 7 rupees 50 paisa on your credit card? Well, it's happening today. Started happening 5 years ago. That internet is what's enabling Indians to invest in the stock market. The moment the FIIs take money out, these guys step in. So you see, the stock market never drops, which is something they don't like. Another thing which they don't like is the fact that the brain drain has been reversed. The doctors, the engineers, the trained personnel are not going abroad anymore, they're staying here because they're finding jobs here. Why would they go abroad? So, where are your replacements coming from in the West? In the US, in Western Europe, in Australia, New Zealand? Where? To grow your own in the US is prohibitively expensive. It's much cheaper here. You see NASA. Supposing all of Indian scientists remain in ISRO, in India, how does NASA find replacements? Where? See, even the beginnings of NASA came from Germany after the World War II. 35% of all NASA scientists are of Indian origin. What would happen if those 35% came back to India? I mean, the West dislikes this government intensely. They're doing everything to try and bring us down. They want us to continue squabbling among ourselves. Hindus and Muslims and Christians all fighting each other and at each other's throats. They love that. And we're doing everything possible to stop it happening. Why? It used to happen because there was nothing else to do. There was nothing better to do. Today they have. They have the means to go forward, to improve their life, to live a better life, a more fulfilling life. Why won't they go for it? The West talks about human rights. It talks about equality and this and that. But that's only for white people over there. It doesn't apply to us here. We're supposed to be kept down. They were frightened of us 50 years ago. They're really frightened today. Because the sleeping giant called India has woken up. And he's creating one hell of a stir. Now you understand the importance of Liquorgate and how big it is and how big the alcohol industry is. It is one of the criteria used to decide how advanced or retarded a nation is. It's one of those basic industries like steel, oil, alcohol, sulfuric acid. Now I know you think a lot of hot air, but it's not. It may sound like hot air, but if you look down and give it a cold hard look, you'll begin to understand what I'm talking about. So many attempts have been made in the past to sit on top of us, to recolonize us, to begin with aid, which is actually money lending like the Chinese are doing in Pakistan and Sri Lanka and Djibouti and a few other places, and in Ecuador and South America and so on. You give a loan and you make sure they can't be repaid, and they keep paying you interest. And eventually you want favors. Not funny, but they're doing it. And they're still trying. Only this time, taking over our industrial production, manufacturing. They want to make sure that nothing is done here. And if anything is done, spoil it. Or take it over. We are not supposed to do it. Why? Because we're idiots. And we've got so many Mir Jafars and Jayachands here who are willing to allow them to do it, provided they're the in-betweens or the puppets used by these same outsiders. 90% of your opposition parties, if not all of them, are like this. They're all Jayachands. They are fighting to be allowed to go and continue looting this country. They seem to think it's their birthright. They're not trying to let people come up, which is what the present Modi government is trying to do. That's what he's up against. All the regional parties are trying to establish themselves to continue looting in their little personal fiefdom or fief. And they're willing to sell their souls to the devil if necessary, or to any outside force, which is what they're doing. Now, try and understand something. If you look at the voting pattern, or how shall I put it, the candidate pattern of all the parties in this country at the moment, who going into this next general election, only one party is actually trying to get a full majority. That's the BJP. They are fighting the election in more than 400, 450 seats. Along with their allies, they're fighting in every seat. They're contesting every seat. All the others, not one is contesting more than 220 or 230. Most of them are contesting only in their own states. 48, 30, 25, this sort of thing number. That should tell you something. They're not interested in the country called India. They're interested in tearing us apart. They want their own personal little hunting ground or their looting ground. It's not good. I hope it never happens. For heaven's sake, do not let these foreign NGOs and foreign funded NGOs come in and take over this country of ours. Because that is what they're trying to do. Please folks, send this across to all your groups, spread it, and think about what I've said very carefully. It's not any one thing, this is only one. There are many other avenues where everybody from outside is trying to take over. So spread the word, do not let them succeed. This is our country, our nation. Let's keep it our own, not foreign run. Please, if you like, subscribe, send to your friends, ask them to send it on further, your relatives, everybody. Because this is one time we have to make up our own mind. What do we want? Our own people or slavery all over again? And remember, this time if a slave driver comes, there's no getting out again. We won't be able to get out again. Let's get that straight. Okay folks, see you next time.